everyone. We're super happy that you're here. This is the WashU T32 otolaryngology residency program opportunity to ask questions, give you a sense for who we are and what we do, give a sense of the program. Importantly, the most important stars are actually those that are in the program or those that have done the program previously, and so you'll be happy to know that that's who we have as some of the main people to talk tonight, as well as Dr. Piccirillo, who's run it for many, many years, and Dr. Liu, who's our residency program director. So I think we have a pretty nice group of people to hear from tonight. I'm Craig Buckman. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I'm the department head here at WashU, and we couldn't be happier that you're taking the time here to be with us. We want to show off who we are, and so importantly, we really want you guys to ask questions about tonight. Just like in really broad strokes, our program is, we believe, is a fantastic, a great training program, predominantly because it hits on all cylinders. Whether it be the clinical side of things, we have great balance, huge case numbers, lots of interesting people that know a lot of good things to teach you, great hospital partner, and really just lots of different sites that provide a really nice diversity of otolaryngology, head and neck surgery. And I think you'll hear from all the residents that their clinical, operative, surgical training is really second to none. And so we're super proud of that, and I hope you'll ask questions about that. The research exposure here is also truly fantastic. Dr. Piccirillo runs the T32 program, and I won't do it justice if I try to sum it up all in a couple of words, but there's a ton of opportunity. If academia is really what you're about, and you really want to become someone who makes research a major part of your career going forward, the T32 is a wonderful opportunity to do that. And so again, you'll get a deep dive on that tonight. And then certainly not lastly, but certainly a really critical part, maybe what we're most proud of here, is our culture. We really believe that this is a great place to train, but it's also sort of a bit of a family atmosphere. We all try and interact as much as we can on a human basis. COVID has, of course, been really difficult with that. But most importantly, we think this is a really kind, gentle place to be. Medicine is hard enough as it is, and so we're really happy that the culture here is very conducive to continuing to live your life. So again, welcome. Hope we can again answer all your questions. We couldn't be happier that you're here, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Liu, I think, as the next speaker. So welcome, everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm Judy Liu. As Dr. Buckman stated, I'm the residency program director. And I will just state that I'm a graduate of the former T32 iteration many years ago. So I can testify that it was instrumental in me staying in academia. Dr. Piccirillo was actually one of my mentors very early on in his career, and he's continued to be a super colleague throughout. But in just talking a little bit about the residency program, we're a big program. We have 5 residents per year. So the T32 program is 2 of those 5 every year. And so it is technically a separate program if you look at it under EROS. So if you're interested, please make sure to apply to both the clinical as well as the research. The information about our residency program, the clinical part of it, we discussed it a little bit at last week's Taste of WashU residency program. The video should be coming out on YouTube shortly. So if you missed it, I would encourage you to go to YouTube or go to our residency homepage and look up that YouTube video. Last year's video is also there, so there's lots of places to get some more information. Finally, we just want to extend our appreciation that you've chosen to spend your time with us this evening and learn more about our program. I think we have a lot to offer you both on the clinical as well as the research side. And please send any questions that you have that may not be answered tonight to our ENT residency at WashU.edu email address, and we'll do our very best to get that back to you. And I will be here just for a few more minutes if there's any other questions, but otherwise I will send it back to Dr. Piccirillo to talk about our T32. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liu and Dr. Buckman, and welcome to everybody who's visiting today. And thanks to all our residents who are chipping in to really give the true story of the T32 program. As Dr. Buckman and Dr. Liu said, I've been running the program since 2012, and I've been at WashU since 1992. So I'm, for better or worse, now one of the senior faculty. And like Dr. Liu said, I remember her as a trainee many years ago when she was in your spot. So it's been fun for me to be here so long and to see this program grow the way it has, and really trying to make it the best experience possible. And tonight I'm going to start out with a few slides just to kind of set the stage, but I'm also old enough to know that you probably would much rather hear from your colleagues and contemporaries, and I think so too. Thank you to those of you who sent in some questions. We have some great questions here that I can pose to the group. I don't know if our residents have anything else more formal than that. I also want to be cognizant of everyone's time, that we're going to stop at a hard stop at 8 Central. As I said, let me get started with my part so I can get through the slides and we can get into the questions and answers, and you can hear from our residents and stuff. So Janet, I'll just go ahead and share. Yeah. Let's do this. Okay, so that looks pretty good for everybody. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
it's not in full
Can you all see?
presentation. Yeah. Now it is in full presentation mode.
okay. So let's start off with, as Dr. Buckman said, Washington University has an established and excellent reputation for both basic biomedical, clinical, translational, and population health sciences. There have been over 19 Nobel laureates here, including Arnold Scheckhauer, who is in the Department of Pediatrics. We have 14 current National Academy of Science members, 30 Institute of Medicine members here at Washington University. This graph is a graph of NIH funding 2015 through 2020 within the department. And last year we had the 6th highest ranking NIH funding of any otolaryngology department in the country. And this quote came from one of our last study sections or reviews of this program. We're now in our 32nd year, I think. So every 5 years we get reviewed. And this quote was from the last review, which states the environment at WashU for research and training in otolaryngology and related disciplines is really first rate. The program has 2 goals. The first, is to train residents in the tools and techniques of biomedical research, and then also to ultimately to compete successfully for individual NIH-sponsored research awards, and eventually take leadership positions like Dr. Liu and Dr. Buckman in biomedical, behavioral, clinical, and translational research. So we really do believe that we're educating the next generation of physician scientists and the people that are really going to move our field forward. This is probably too small for you all to see. That's not the point. But what I'd like to share with you is the grid that we use to describe the individual scientists who are part of our faculty. And this first row talks about research focus, hearing, balance, voice, speech, and then whether it's basic biomedical science, translational, clinical, or behavioral, we have scientists affiliated with our program in all different phases of research and in all different areas of the mission areas of NIDCD. We have an impressive research accomplishments across these areas, as I mentioned, and the program faculty have extensive clinical skills as well as leadership experience in both research and national organizations. There's something also very exciting about Washington University I want you to know about, which is the startup companies and commercialization of biotechnology, all within walking distance of our medical center. And this is something that was really seeded maybe 10, 15 years ago by Washington University. That is this whole entrepreneurial startup tech transfer hub. And while we won't be mistaken for Boston, San Francisco, Austin, it really is in its own right, quite an exciting area. And the fact that it's so close to WashU makes it a real opportunity for our trainees to take advantage of research, innovation, transfer, and all the exciting related research things going on there. What I'd like to do is run through graduates of our program and where they are around the country. Some of them may be at institutions that you students are at. So we'll start off with Dr. Piccirillo, one of our earliest graduates, about 1991 or so. He's obviously still on faculty here. Ellis Arjamon is head of pediatrics in New Orleans. We've got Neil Hugigian, who's at University of Michigan, and then Bob Young at UMD NJ in New Jersey, Jim Katisha in Wayne State, Sid Kosamar at Cincinnati, Eric Jendon at Mount Sinai, Judy Liu, of course, here at WashU. Ravi Upalari is in Boston. And we've got Joe Padafar at Dartmouth, Urji Patel at Chicago, John Sun Wu at Stanford, Ken Lee at UT Southwest Dallas, Wen Zhang at UCSD, Noma Young, he's at Yale, Mike Brenner, he's at Michigan, Davood Surjani, he runs the Palo Alto VA at Stanford, Eric Wong is at Pittsburgh, Jason Rich is one of our head and neck surgeons here. Fumi Olafoma is at UNLV, Nevada. Andre Wineland is in Arkansas. Andrea Park, UCSF. Kathy Cow in Houston. Lauren Rowland currently at UCSF, but we're proud to say she'll be coming back to the mothership shortly, back to WashU. And then Neil Batt started his faculty position at University of Washington in Seattle. So these are some of our graduates in the program. As I've mentioned, the program has been around for a very long time, and we have some outstanding graduates of our program we're very proud of. The program has three parts. It's a mentored research experience. You have continuous 2 years of research and then an additional 10 weeks during your PGY3. Didactic coursework. I would say most of our trainees go for a master's level degree in clinical investigation. It's 33 credit hours. You don't have to, but it's a great opportunity for those of you who are doing clinical translational. I definitely would recommend it. And then finally, career development. We have academic career development conferences and career workshops. And so again, this statement was from one of our reviews. The otolaryngology department and associated departments at WashU, they're a group of outstanding scientists in the NIDCD mission, and it really rivals any institution in the country. So let me stop at this point. What I'll do maybe is read off a question or two and then allow our trainees to kind of take it from there. Does that sound like a good idea? Okay. All right. So one of the first questions was from one of our potential applicants. Hopefully, how did your decision to apply or to attend the T32 program shape your professional goals? So maybe I'll forward that to Paul Zolkin, who's joining us. Paul came back to the mothership after doing a head and neck fellowship at Stanford. And Paul, if you're still on, oh, of course, Lauren, if you wanted to answer, these would be both of our graduates and alums, Lauren Rowland and Paul Zolkin. Lauren, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm Lauren. I graduated from residency in 2018, so I'm about 3 years out now. And I decided I wanted to do a T32 program because I was interested in an academic career. So that was my interest before I applied. And I do think that it's greatly affected my career trajectory. So I did fellowship, and I am currently working at UCSF, as was mentioned, but will be coming back to WashU soon. So I clearly think really highly of WashU, the T32 program, but in general, the residency program and the research opportunities. So I was interested in an academic career, and I do think that completing the T32, the skills that I learned from the master's program and the skills that I learned doing research have really shaped my career and given me a lot of opportunity in terms of fellowship, my current job, and in my new job at WashU.
Lauren, thank you. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Dr. Piccirillo. So I agree with Lauren.
Oops.
The
Paul,
32 fellowship gave me a few things. One of the I worked with Robbie Valeri, and I couldn't tell if I'm breaking up.
you're good now.
Okay.
Keep going.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to walk outside, and all of a sudden my internet stopped working inside.
Paul?
So the
Paul,
opportunity for mentorship was important. I also thought that it provided me with the opportunity. I applied for. Sorry, Dr. Piccirillo. I'll try to find a better place to stand here.
Okay, Paul, we'll get back to you. Let's go on to the next question. This is a good one, and I have some people that I might want to pick on, but one of the residents just self-select. So the question is, did you have substantial research prior to the residency? Do you have to have a lot of research experience to be competitive for the program, or even to really feel comfortable in the program? And again, let me just ask that both from perspective of those of you who did have research experience and those of you who didn't. So how about Ben Wally? How about you start with someone who did have research experience?
Yeah, hey there. I'm Ben Wally. I'm now at PGY3, so I finished in the lab about 10 weeks ago. I did have research experience. I did a year in a basic science lab when I was in med school. And I mean, I think it was helpful. It was good to know what I was sort of getting myself into. And it also, I think, helped me sort of have a running start when I, started in the lab here at WashU. But I certainly think if you don't have research experience and you want to spend 2 years doing research, we have, master's programs and formal coursework that I think would help you boot that up and kind of learn fundamentals in a formal way. So I think no matter where you're at, this program can kind of meet you where you are.
Great, Ben, thank you. How about someone who really didn't have a lot of research experience? How do they feel about the whole experience now?
I think I can speak to that, Dr. Piccirillo. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, great.
Great. Hey everyone, I'm Tom Barrett. I'm in my second year of 2 years in the lab right now. So just for background, I was a philosophy poli-sci major as an undergrad. Actually worked in a different field before deciding to go to medicine. So I did a post-bac before going to medical school. So really had, I think, as little research experience as you can have before going to medical school. During medical school, when I was thinking about ENT, I started doing some, clinical, maybe translational research, and it really piqued my interest in a way that I didn't think that it would when I started medical school. At the start of, fourth year sub-I season, looking at residency programs, is when I actually learned about these T32 programs. There was the question of whether or not to do a gap year in medical school. I felt like I didn't have a good enough question to ask at the time, so I just went ahead. But I saw these T32 programs as like a great way to actually get some dedicated time to learn how to do research, to actually have some clinical experience under my belt and make that time, more meaningful. And 2 years is, I think you can accomplish a lot more than, just a 1 year in medical school. And, the transition to the lab, right now I'm doing, tumor genomics basically. So pretty basic as far as basic goes. And I mean, I definitely had a little bit of a steep learning curve to start, but I feel like I got up to speed pretty quickly. And there's plenty of support in the lab, in the department, coursework has been mentioned. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm actually completely amazed with how much I've learned in only a year, and pretty excited still have a year to apply what I've learned. Non research focused. Yeah, that's.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else want to speak up? Amit, Noma, Jake, the three of you look great over there. Whose apartment is that?
That's mine. I'll say a few words.
Sure.
My name's Ahmed. I'm one of the T32 residents that's on my second year of research. I'm doing primarily clinical research, and prior to residency, I had really done no clinical research at all. I took 1 year off between medical school and undergrad to do basic science research in a chemistry lab. And it was just a great opportunity to, proceed with research that I wasn't familiar with and collaborate with mentors and colleagues here to push whatever research interests I developed during my first 2 years of residency. And I was probably more so in between in terms of having research experience, but I think this program applies to any type of applicant. It really doesn't matter how much research experience you have prior to starting this program.
Noma or Jake, did you want to say anything?
Sure. My name's Noma. I'm a PGY3. I just finished 2 years in the lab. I think I'm probably at the other end of the spectrum. I had actually no research coming into residency. I went to a different medical school that emphasized more clinical medicine and not so much time for research. So that was very different for me. And I can say that was one of my motivations for applying to the T32 program, is understanding that research is going to be a major part of the career I wanted to have as someone who is an academic otolaryngologist. And so that's why this program really spoke out to me. But even on top of that, aside from the research experience, is the actual lessons in research. As part of the program here, you do have an opportunity to get what's called a master's in clinical investigation. It's essentially just advanced learning in clinical research theory. And for me, I thought that was super valuable, not having any experience. I can say now that after doing my 2 years and getting that degree, I feel very self-sufficient and independent in executing a research question and answering it and figuring out what I need to do to answer that question. And so if I talk to myself before medical school and now, it's like a totally different person. So I can say, even if you're coming from a program that's very clinical, or a medical school that's very clinically heavy and doesn't make a lot of time for research, you can still find your way and be successful if you come here.
Thank you, Noma. I think some of this kind of reflects my own background. I was the kid who the high school counselor was just glad he'd graduate from, college, and kind of really extended anyone's expectations of me for getting through college. And I never thought I would be doing research at a place called WashU. But sometime during the second year of residency, when I was told to do this or do that, when I'd ask, well, why? How do we know it works? I don't know, just do it. We got to get going. This whole idea of why do we do what we do and how do we know it works just became a really burning desire for me. So I'm such a late bloomer, and like some of the other people you heard, went to able, never really thought research would be a big part. So in that sense, I'm really sympathetic to, have a soft spot in my heart for those of you maybe who apply from schools that don't have a lot of the advantages that a WashU has. And so absolutely, if you feel like research is something that you want to do, but you haven't, don't be afraid to apply. On the other hand, as a program director, it's nice to interview people like Ben or Daniel or Teresa, some of these people that have had good research experiences in medical school, because they have a better idea of what research is. So it's a little bit more of a sure bet. So I'm constantly going back and forth between trying to find the diamond in the rough, the young person who's got a burning desire to answer a question, but maybe hasn't had that experience yet, versus somebody who's been in a lab or 2 or 3 times or years and has really shown themselves to be very, very productive. So all I'm saying is, don't worry about your background, look to the future. And I would say one last thing, we want to hear how you're going to take advantage of all the opportunities here at WashU. It's not just another school. And I would say, again, coming from another type school, it's a real privilege to be here and take advantage of things. Let me stop for a second. Paul, are you back on at a secure location somewhere with good internet? And can you answer the question about how the program's helped you for your professional? And then we'll get back to some more nitty gritty questions about, applying to the program, but go ahead.
Can you hear me a little better now?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. I was traveling all over my house and yard to find a little internet reception. The program helped me tremendously. I was similar to a couple of the other people who spoke. I did not have a ton of research experience coming in into the T32, but the way the fellowship is designed, there's a lot of opportunities for education. There's a lot of classes to be taken on grant writing and statistics and things like that. So there's a lot of ways to learn. And so 2 years is I found to be plenty of time to gain the skills and techniques and philosophies behind research to really make a meaningful project. And it definitely helped me further my goals of getting into a fellowship that I wanted. And this job here at WashU, I've been afforded the opportunity to do research as well, which is a real privilege, like Dr. Piccirillo said. So for me, the T32 really sort of kicked off a lot of my interest and excitement. So I feel very appreciative and honored to have been able to participate in it.
Great, Paul. Thank you. Next question, great one. How do you identify a research question or even a research mentor? So I don't know if maybe Teresa and David want to talk about someone. How did you all come up with your research question, your mentors?
Hi, David. This is Teresa. We're both in our first year of the T32 research track. It's a lot of trial and error. I met with a bunch of faculty, both on the clinical side as well as the scientific translational side, and just talking with them, getting a feel for what projects are like and what they are like. A lot of the previous mentors I've had that I've kept in touch with are people I click with right away. And that's always led to some kind of productive relationship. So that was the first thing I was looking for, someone I could speak honestly with and have a working relationship with. And the other facet of that is being at a program that suits your interests. I was initially interested in head and neck surgery, and we have a really strong clinical as well as research side in head and neck surgery. But now I'm more interested in ears, and hearing is something that we are very strong at, both clinically and research as well. And so kind of with those two lenses is how I've parsed out which T32 program or which program in general would be best for me. And there's no replacing just going out there, sending cold emails, and just WashU is a place where it's not really how many people you know, it's how many people will call you back, and people are very responsive and people are very easy to get a hold of. So that's kind of my process and how I find mentors, and from there, research questions that we were both mutually interested in.
Yeah, I would agree with that process. When I was applying for residency programs, I would look at what faculty were doing research-wise and try to figure out if I felt like I could envision myself doing something in that line of work. And I did find a lot of people at WashU that resonated with me. While I was trying to identify what my project would be for my 2 research years, I was kind of narrowing things down based on what my broad interests were. I ultimately decided I wanted to focus on clinical research. So I'm working with Dr. Piccirillo in the clinical outcomes research lab, but I also wanted to have a head and neck spin on things. So I'm working on some other projects in collaboration with Dr. Jackson and Dr. Zabayos. Jake Lee gave me some of the inspiration for my primary project. So always talk to your co-residents and people above you and see what they're doing, see what questions are left unanswered that might be interesting for someone else to take on.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, David. Any other comments? I wanted to ask Paulina and Carla, since both of you are now back into clinical, how challenging was it to transition from 2 years of research? I don't know if you all moonlit. We can talk about that. We really do like the residents to keep busy moonlighting during their research time, but there is a long time that you're not actually seeing patients as you were PGY1, PGY2. So Carla and Paulina, do you want to speak about that transition, how easy or difficult it was? And maybe even Lauren and Paul too, if you'd like, but Carla.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Carla Valenzuela. I'm a PGY5 now, which is crazy to say when I see Lauren and Paul on the call when they were my seniors. So transitioning back from research time to clinicals was always something that I was a little anxious about. And I think I asked Paul about it, and I think you told me like it takes about a year to really feel like you're comfortable. And I would agree with that. I think the first month you feel a little rough. I did a lot of moonlighting during my research fellowship. So I was like, I kind of followed Lauren's pathway. I was, colorectal, MIS, urology, also Paul. We were all this like general surgery resident in our T32 time. So I think that did help me with my like surgical skill. But for the most part, after, a few months of just jumping back into clinicals, it does come back. Now, after finishing head and neck, it feels like a blur that I was out of, clinicals for so long. You just get back into it and you feel comfortable, and it's not terrible to jump back in. So my transition was, I think, expected, appropriate, and I don't feel any different than I think I would have if I had continued going through.
Paulina, thank you, Carla. Paulina, how about your experience?
I would echo what Carla said and what previous T32 residents had told me, like such as Paul. It takes about a year to really feel like you're back into the swing of things. But I would say that the way that they structure the curriculum for when you come back as a research resident, it's very graduated. So you don't feel like you're being thrust into like difficult rotations like head and neck right away. So you start off on like general or rotations that are meant to give you that transition period. And so I would say that, to echo Carla, it was a expected transition.
Thanks. How about Ben and Noma? Aren't you the two that have just jumped back in for the past month? Ben, how's it?
Yeah.
How's it going for you? And then Noma next.
I started at the VA, where you're kind of, it's kind of your clinic. So it's been kind of interesting, but I didn't think it was that bad. It's going fine. Just ask your senior residents when you need help, or your attendings. My attendings are now, Paul and Raj. So it's pretty easy to ask them for help. So I don't know. I was extremely anxious about it. I started having that dream where you, haven't studied. You like are registered for a math course or something, and you forgot that you were registered for it or something. I started having that dream like midway through the summer, and then, got back, and everything's gone fine. We did a parotid yesterday. The face worked afterwards. So
I can vouch that Ben did a great job on that case.
Noma, how about you? How's it been for you the past month?
It's been fine. I'm actually, it's so early, but it's really been okay. I'm probably just gonna punt this one to Jake, since he's been back for a whole year. Probably can speak a little better to it.
All right.
Yeah, so I'm a current clinical PGY4. It's been, I guess, it's been a little over a year since I've been back on the clinical side of things. But, I think in terms of, I think the biggest thing that to catch up on is kind of soft tissue technical skills. But even then, at some point, I think it's kind of like riding a bike in a way. And just based on your PGY3 rotations, you have 10 more weeks of clinical rotations than the clinical track people, because the clinical track people have 5 months of research. Meanwhile, we have 10 weeks. So it's definitely less so. a lot of that time was on our general rotation. So I think kind of things like, at least for me, I went to a lot of courses during my research time, whether it's for head and neck courses or endoscopic courses. And I thought that really helped a lot, to the point where I felt nearly just as comfortable as I did as when I ended PGY 2-year with like endoscopic stuff. And then things like seeing consults and like kind of knowledge base, I think as long as you keep up with that, I thought it was much easier to get back in that flow of things. And then lastly, I think I moonlit in the SICU, the surgical ICU, a decent amount. So I think the clinical side of things and managing patients on the floor, as well as any critical care issues, I thought I was actually better than I was when I ended PGY 2-year. So there's definitely some give and some take, but as long as you kind of structure your research years and do moonlighting, which is actually encouraged here, which is kind of a rarity in a residency program for ENT, I think you'll be well set.
Thank you,
I
Jay.
just wanted to say,
oh, good, please.
Oh, I just wanted to say, I was super, super anxious about the transition. And I remember sitting down with Judy Liu and saying how anxious I was and making this whole schedule for what I should do first versus second for rotations and all that. And I did courses and I did moonlighting, and we really have a moonlighting structure where we can sort of hand over the moonlighting job to the next resident. We sort of have it set up. But it was fine. This happens every year in our program that people return. And so we all know how it goes, and it's understood, that anxiety. So I would not worry about that, or at least as much as I worried about it, because it will be fine.
Thank you, Lauren. Just to clarify the money. So the moonlighting, I don't know how much you all make, but I assume it's pretty good change, and that's what you make, and you pay taxes on it, and it's extra income. It pays student loans or pays the rent. You also get paid. There was a question about, do I get paid during my research years? Yes, you get a PGY 2 salary, you get health care benefits, you get some research related costs, some travel. So, you're not getting rich, but you certainly get a PGY 2 salary too. And then I think you come back at a 3. We're trying to work on that a little bit, but that plus the moonlighting really does help. Unless there's anything else about that, I guess there was a really good question, and all of you can jump right in. Did the research experience in general take away from your surgical experience? Do you feel, Carla and Pawina, or now that you're towards the end, or Lauren, now that you've gotten out, and Paul, now that you've gotten out, did you feel that you had the training to make you comfortable surgeons? And again, Pawina and Carla, on your way to being fully competent surgeons, or was it too much research and it took away from it? Anybody?
I don't think it detracted at all. I think on a personal level, I think you get to know your faculty as like people throughout your research time. And so when you transition, it's actually it's really nice to be back. People remember what you were like as a junior. And I think you have this like new ease around them, or just this new comfort level around them that you didn't really have before. I did basic science research, animal research, where I was like always drilling. So I feel like that was really helpful for me in terms of just like adding to my training. But I can't imagine how the research experience would detract from your surgical experience, because you're learning throughout that time. And I think that you're learning an area of otolaryngology. So that's only going to make you stronger in that field, in that subspecialty, if that makes any sense.
Great.
I'd echo that I felt like it helped coming back, having done 2 years of research. It gives you, I think, another dimension of maturity when you come back. So I think sometimes you can get tunnel vision when you're in residency and you forget about the bigger picture. But I would really say that it's been great, and it's been nothing but added to my surgical experience.
Can you all speak to how the 7-year T32 residents integrate with the 5-year residents? Is there any problems with that? How do you all mesh with the 5 years?
I think that it's super fun because a couple of, you start off in one class, you switch to another class. So the people you started with, who are kind of your BFFs when you start, they become your senior residents. And like right now, for example, I'm working with just a lot of my friends are now my senior residents. So we're on teams together, and I really enjoy that. when you start off, you make friends with people in your class, and kind of the junior residents kind of get to know the junior residents. But you don't really like work together that much because you're on different teams, because you're kind of all the same level. But then you kind of, when you go out to the lab, you kind of shuffle the deck, and then you can be on the same team. And so it's if you make a lot of friends when you're a junior resident, then they become your senior residents, and then you end up on teams with your friends, which is I think is a lot of fun. So
Thanks, Ben. Other thoughts about integration within the program?
Yeah, and it's we have a T32 resident that's now a PGY4. When he was on his research, he was the official and unofficial social chair, and now I'm sitting next to our unofficial/official social chair. So in terms of like we'd be like hosting things or getting the crowd going. So it's not, you're just not into the lab, never to see the light of day again. It's a good kind of balance to things in the hospital. Again, like what Paulina was saying, you can get a really narrow view, and it's nice to kind of broaden it back and help broaden that for other people as well.
And I'll add that during your clinical years, you're all treated the same way as a class. Like your rotations are pretty much the same, except that you have those extra clinical rotations during your 3-year. And like no one would know. People ask like, oh, are you a T32 resident? Like, oh, I didn't realize. Okay. I guess you're going to research next year. Bye. But like, there's really no difference in the hospital.
I think I want to just add that what you can really sense is the collegiality of this program. The fact that when you come back as a research resident, I didn't feel like I was totally isolated or didn't have any friends. And it's a very welcoming program in general between the 5-year versus 7 years. And I hope that the applicants, that you guys can get a feel for that from this Zoom and then our Zoom last week.
And by the way, for those in the 5-year program, we expect them to do a lot of research also. As Jake Lee mentioned, we now have 21 weeks of research for the 5 years, and all of the research resources, infrastructure, biostatisticians, research compliance, they're all available for our 5 years also. So we really don't make a distinction between the 5s and the 7s at all. Quite frankly, they're all expected to do research. It's just the 7 years have 2 more years. Listen, I've looked at Daniel and Jordan as our youngest residents and newest members of the team. Do you guys want to add anything from your perspective? Obviously, you're closest to our medical students who are on the program today, and speak up in any way that you think might help them make a decision. Daniel, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, hey guys. Yeah, I'm an intern. So I was in your shoes last year. One of the things that I just encourage you all to consider, especially if you're sort of in between the T32 versus sort of the more traditional program, is just to really sort of search for a program, if you're interested in research, where the research is really integrated into the residency program. That's obviously less of an issue with T32 programs because it's by design integrated. But there are a lot of programs out there where the institution has a great clinical residency program, and they do a lot of great research and have a lot of funding, but where it didn't seem to me like the residents were really all that involved in the research. They had a bunch of sort of research faculty that were sort of separate from that. So really try to dig into and delve into seeing whether the residents are really involved in sort of high level research. And WashU is certainly a place where that's the case. And it's also a place where there's really high quality clinical training too. And as Dr. Buckman said at the beginning, and hopefully as you've seen, has a really positive collegial culture where you'll obviously work hard, but you'll enjoy the time that you're working as well. So that's really all I have to add, being this early in training, but I'll put my email here if any of you have any questions about the program or about virtual interviewing. It's sort of a new thing we're all doing, but I'm happy to answer any questions or sort of quell any concerns about that.
Thank you, Daniel. Jordan, how about you?
Sure, I can hop in as well. I think I said this last meeting, but just emphasize for you guys going through this process. It's such a stressful time. Just take it day by day. As far as the T32 programs, I remember being a medical student, and there's not a lot of programs that have this opportunity. And so I think in part of that too, it's just really trying to think about, what your goals are, what you're kind of wanting to get a residency, I think a big thing for me, I came to a sub-I here at WashU and really, was open to 32. And then as I kind of got experience more about the opportunities here, it was really just like, wow, this is an incredible option that, it's an honor to be able to be a part of this. I haven't quite got through yet of PGY2, but I'm really excited for it. So I would just say, like, there's so many things going through your mind right now, and I think most people just have the sense of, I just want to match somewhere and I want to have a job. But it is really important to like try to think about these details and try to consider it. And at the end of the day, like, if you're matching an otolaryngology program, you're going to have a great training and you can have opportunities to do these things. But I think here really is an incredible place. And there's faculty, I'd say, just something that doesn't get broadened enough is the faculty here from a research standpoint, from a clinical standpoint, are all just very supportive. The idea of like a malignant culture is really not a thing that I've ever experienced or anybody would even ever say. So any questions similar to Daniel, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer anything, and good luck with the process.
Well, I'd like Lauren and Paul to say a little bit more since they're the first out, but maybe before that, some questions. I've checked the chat. I don't see any active questions, but absolutely, if those of you feel comfortable to unmute and ask questions, fire at us.
Hi, I did have a quick question. Thanks for hosting this event. I know that right now, obviously you do population health research and you have resources for that. Have you felt that you've been able to kind of grow that sort of arm of the program? I know a lot of people have talked about their basic science research, but how about the sort of public health and health disparities arm?
Absolutely. That would be not within our department so much, but within the population health sciences, which is a division within the Department of Surgery. And so that building's about 100 yards from our department, and we interact with them often. And so if that's a particular interest of yours, we could make that work, and we would have faculty that would work with you. You bet.
As part of the MSCI program, you can do courses in public health as well. And there, several courses and statistics and things like that.
Great question. Thank you.
And I think maybe Ben can comment on this more, but Dr. Zavios works with Miss Angela Mazul, who does a lot of health disparities research, especially when it comes to head and neck cancer. So she's a great resource. And she works hand in hand with Dr. Zavios. So I'm sure, I don't know, Ben, if you have any more to add.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to it, but she's she has dual appointments. She's in our department, and she does exactly what you're describing, essentially, with a focus on head and neck cancer. So she wasn't like my primary mentor, but I ended up learning a ton from her over the 2 years. So I think, yeah, that's definitely something we could support here.
So we try to encourage our T32s to pick mentors who are one of our 21 faculty. Most of them are within the Department of Odo, but you are eligible to go outside the department to seek mentors at the university. We kind of discourage that, and then we actively prohibit going outside the university. So like back to NIH or back home. No, you've got to stay on the WashU campus and ideally within our own department. But we can work out different arrangements too, possibly. Other questions?
Hi there. I did have a question. Dr. Piccirillo, I think earlier in the presentation, you spoke a little bit about kind of the surrounding, I forget the word you used exactly, but you were talking about the surrounding kind of innovation centers. And and then I think another resident also talked about kind of passing along projects that maybe have taken on a life of their own. So I was curious about, are there any projects that stick out to you that have been in collaboration with kind of more perhaps device design or actual, physical things that have been invented or innovated that maybe have taken on a life of their own? Or if not, is there kind of a pipeline to make something like that happen?
That's a great question to answer at the beginning. So it's the Cortex, that's the name for the district, that's the Entrepreneur Tech Transfer. enterprise. I'll say it with everyone here. I've been a little disappointed that our trainees haven't taken more advantage of that. And maybe, if they could let me know if there's things I can do to help that along, I'd love to see that happen. It's really quite exciting. COVID's put a little bit of a dent in it, but it's an exciting place. With regards to device, full disclosure, we do not have as strong a relationship with the bioengineering, biomedical college here at WashU. It's very, very strong. It's across the park. I don't know if that's physical distance or other reasons, but I don't think we do as much device development as you might think for an Odo department, that's for sure. But Amit, I know you might think about it, or Ben, who's sort of—
There are opportunities for that though. And I did not take advantage of that. It wasn't really my interest, but my husband was a neurosurgery resident, and he is part of, he's also coming back to WashU and there's an innovations group, and they do have a relationship. There's no reason why the ENT department couldn't be affiliated with it. I just don't think there's been anything that's been presented at it, but they do have a relationship with the undergraduate and the graduate students, so they can, have ideas, they get presented, and they get selected for if they're going to be taken to the next level. And so I think Jared, was like a mentor to an undergrad, or there was some relationship that was kind of set up where he had a role, and then the students had a role in sort of design. And so a lot of it is part of their design classes where they have ideas, or they come to a surgeon with a, kind of half an idea but then the surgeon gives their input of how it would actually be useful. So I know there's opportunities, and I could talk to my husband about it. It's just not something that I do, but I know you can do it at WashU.
Awesome, great. It's good to hear that. Thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak to the second part of Lander's question with regards to projects that have kind of continued on? Is that what you were getting at, Lander?
Yeah.
Jake finished up some stuff that I had barely started, but I think he made it much better. You did a couple of things.
Oh, for the papilloma projects, or before I get to that, I guess Lander, I guess one thing that Dr. Piccirillo didn't mention was Ricardo, one of the T32 residents former T32 residents my year, he actually developed, he kind of designed and patented basically a saliva or a drain fluid assay to measure kind of cancer DNA. So that was under the mentorship of Dr. Zavayo. So that's fully patented, up and running. They have, I think, some VC interest, or they already secured, I think, some VC funding. So there are opportunities if that's something that you desire. I did take an elective, bioentrepreneurship elective during my MSCI degree, which I did it out of, just pure curiosity and interest. Basically I designed a combination, or like at least the schematics, or not the full details of a combination drug device for polyps, nasal polyps. And basically got good ideas and references, but since that was the end of my T32, I guess never pursued it much further. So you do have opportunities, I'd say. And as for what Lauren was getting about kind of getting projects handed off, I continued some work that Lauren had with inverted papillomas. We share kind of project ideas and databases all the time, and then of course in an IRB appropriate manner, and then was able to kind of, with Lauren's help, with what she started, kind of finish some projects. Got, I think, 2 manuscripts and a couple presentations out of that. So there's always there's always room for collegiality here, and you could always get projects handed off. In fact, I did, I'm doing some of that right now with some of the juniors. So,
just for everyone here, and for our trainees, you know how I keep making the point of thinking really big. So your primary project is something that you have to own. It's something that hopefully will form a foundation for the early part of your career, and really take advantage of 2 years of intense study, mentored research coursework. But then there's opportunities for second and third projects, like Jake was saying, to help out with other residents or take on projects that are sort of need a little attention. We really encourage at least 3 projects going at one time, because there's downtimes in other projects. Does anyone want to speak to this big project idea, or think big? We really don't want you to think about little small projects at all.
Yeah, I would really echo that. I think that if you're going to spend 2 years doing research, you should try to do something really substantial, and you should try to kind of focus on building a body of work towards something, because that is sort of in general, if you're starting sort of as a young faculty member, you want to have kind of a niche or something, some special set of skills, some special area that you're an expert in. And so my mentors kind of encourage that. And I think that I hope that's going to help me in the future. And the other thing is, if you really have a big project, you hopefully have learned something, and that sort of forms the basis for future funding. And so towards the end of your T32, you can start, with your mentor putting in grants related to the stuff that you've been working on. And you get that grant writing experience, which I think has been a huge valuable experience that I got working with Dr. Ceballos. So yeah, I think that's really important. If you're going to spend 2 years, you could do a lot, 20 different little projects, but I think it's more meaningful to work on something really big and try to make a big contribution. So.
Thanks, Ben. Lauren or Paul, our most senior people, any other closing thoughts? We've got a minute or two.
I think one thing that I thought about a lot before applying for the T32 program is, because I think it can be a little bit intimidating to add an extra 2 years to what's already kind of a long training pathway with the med school and residency, possibly a fellowship. It gets up there in terms of number of years you're committing to it. The one thought that kept sort of going through my mind as I applied to this program was that, once you graduate, you're sort of done. Like, you're going to be an attending for 30, 35 years, like the rest of your career, you're going to have the same job more or less, and maybe in different settings, but this is really your last opportunity to do something that's an investment in you, and more or less in a real dedicated way. And so to me, it seemed like an opportunity that just shouldn't be missed. So it fit my priorities.
Thank you, Paul. Lauren?
Yeah, I agree. It sounds 2 years more sounds like a lot when ENT residency was already 5 years. And I also did a fellowship. But I think that the benefit of those 2 years has been so obvious to me in the past couple of years, as I have been, applying to fellowship and to faculty positions and trying to get started in both clinical and research endeavors. And I think besides having a PhD in something that really interests you, the T32 is just a great way to be competitive, but also to really see what you're interested in and get a lot of skills. So I don't think you should be intimidated by the 2 years, but I obviously felt the same way as many people do at this stage when you're finishing med school.
Thank you, Lauren. And I'd like to thank all the medical students who joined us tonight to hear our story. And obviously, I want to thank our alum, Paul and Lauren, and then our active current residents. Thank you so much for sharing your story. That's a really important story. And for the medical students, please don't hesitate to contact me in particular, or others if you've got questions. It's a big decision. We get it, but we hope it's the right decision. So best of luck. Thanks again to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.